Hello, my lucky learners. Welcome back to Lucky English for Beginners. I am absolutely delighted to have you with me today. Find a comfortable chair, settle into a quiet space, and let the outside world fade away for a while. Today, we are not just learning English. We are stepping into the 17th century, into the mind of a man who wrote perhaps the greatest epic poem in the entire English language. We are going to explore the life of John Milton, the man who dared to justify the ways of God to men while living in total darkness. This is a story about how a man who lost his sight found a vision so powerful that it changed English literature forever. It is a story about the strength of the human spirit, the beauty of complex language, and why the most important tool you have, your imagination, can never be taken away from you, no matter what happens in the world outside. Part 1: The Scholar of London. Our story begins in 1608 in the heart of London. John Milton was not born in a cottage, but in a busy, thriving household. His father was a scrivener, someone who wrote legal documents, and he loved music and books. From the time he was a very young boy, John was obsessed with learning. He didn't just want to read, he wanted to know everything. He studied Latin, Greek, Hebrew, and French. He stayed up late by the light of a single candle, reading until his eyes hurt. Even as a young man, John had a grand dream. He didn't want to just be a lawyer or a priest. He told his friends, "I will write a poem so great that it will be remembered for centuries." Most people would laugh at such a dream. But John Milton was not an ordinary man. He was building his mind, stone by stone, word by word, preparing for a masterpiece that he hadn't even begun to write yet. Part 2: A Life of Political Passion. But life is never just about books. In the mid-1600s, England was a place of great danger and change. There was a civil war, there was political fighting. John Milton was a man of strong opinions. He believed in freedom of speech and the rights of the people. He stopped writing poetry for 20 years to work for the government, writing important documents and arguing for what he believed was right. He put his own creativity on hold to serve his country. Imagine that. He had the soul of a poet, but he spent his best years in the world of politics, writing serious, difficult prose. Many people thought he had given up on his dream. They thought he was too busy, too old, and too tired to ever write the great epic poem he had promised as a young man. But John Milton was a patient man. He was playing the long game. Part 3: The Great Darkness. Then tragedy struck. Around the age of 43, John Milton's eyesight began to fail. He had read so much, studied so hard, and written so tirelessly that his eyes simply gave out. By 1652, John Milton was completely blind. Imagine living in the 17th century in total darkness. He couldn't read his favorite books. He couldn't see the faces of his children. He couldn't see the beauty of the London streets. Most people would have fallen into despair. Most would have stopped working, but John Milton did the impossible. He realized that if he couldn't see the world with his eyes, he would see it with his mind. He would see it with his imagination. Part 4: Writing in the Dark. How do you write a masterpiece if you cannot see the page? John Milton had to write Paradise Lost entirely by memory. He would spend the night dreaming up hundreds of lines, and in the morning he would wait for a friend or a daughter to come to his room. He would sit in his chair and he would dictate the lines to them. He didn't have a computer, he didn't have a pen. He had only his voice and his memory. He created a world of heaven, hell, and the first humans, Adam and Eve, using only the power of his internal vision. It took him years, and it was the hardest work of his life, but when it was finished, the world was stunned. They couldn't believe a blind man had created such vivid, colorful, and powerful language. Part 5: Why John Milton Matters to You. You might ask, why should I, an English learner, care about a blind poet from the 1600s? That is a beautiful question. John Milton is important because he teaches us about the power of the English language. His sentences were long, complex, and musical. He didn't just use words to say things, he used words to sound like the things he was describing. When he described something falling, the words sounded like they were falling. When he described something grand, the words sounded noble and heavy. As a learner, you might think grammar is just a set of rules, but Milton shows us that grammar is a rhythm. It is a way to dance. When you learn English, don't just memorize rules. Listen to the music of the sentences. Try to feel the rhythm of the words. When you start to hear the music in English, you will find that you aren't just learning a language anymore. You are learning to express the music of your own soul. Part 6: The Art of the Long Sentence. Milton loved what we call complex sentences. Sometimes he would write a sentence that lasted for 5 or 6 lines. Now, you don't have to do that. I would actually advise you to keep your sentences short and clear, but I want you to learn from his control. Milton knew exactly where to put every word. He was a craftsman. When you practice your English, try to be a craftsman. Don't just throw words together. Think about the order of your words. Think about the feeling of your sentences. Even if you are a beginner, you can start by being thoughtful. Take your time. Say the sentence out loud and ask yourself, does this sound like music? Part 7: Perseverance Against All Odds. John Milton's life teaches us the greatest lesson of all. Your circumstances do not define your potential. If a blind man in the 17th century could dictate the greatest poem in the English language, what can you do? When you feel like your English isn't progressing, remember Milton sitting in his dark room dictating his lines. He didn't have light, but he had a vision. If you have a vision for your own future, if you can imagine yourself speaking English fluently, then you have everything you need to get there. Part 8. The Power of Vocabulary. Milton loved big, beautiful, Latin-based words. He loved words that were heavy and meaningful. Because of him, the English language grew. He introduced thousands of new ways to say things. When you learn a new, big, fancy word in English, you aren't just adding a word to your list, you are adding a new color to your painting. Milton reminds us that language is a treasure chest. Don't be afraid of the big words. Explore them. Try them on for size. Use them in your own sentences. You have the right to use the full power of this language. Part 9. The Importance of Focus. John Milton had to focus. He couldn't be distracted by the television or the internet because they didn't exist, but even today we can learn from his focus. When you sit down to study your English, be like Milton. Close your eyes, forget the phone, forget the worries of the day. Just focus on the words, the rhythm, and the beauty of the language. Focus is a superpower. If you give your English 30 minutes of deep focus, it is worth more than 5 hours of distracted, half-hearted work. Part 10. Imagination as a tool. Milton didn't need to see the world to describe it perfectly. He used his imagination. This is the best tool for an English learner. When you are studying, imagine yourself in the situation you are describing. If you are learning about ordering food in a restaurant, close your eyes and imagine the smell of the food, the noise of the restaurant, and the feel of the chair. When you use your imagination, the words become sticky. They stick to your brain. You don't have to memorize them anymore. You just remember the experience. Part 11. Being a language artist. You are not just a student. That word is too small. You are an artist. You are learning to paint with the colors of English. You are learning to play the instrument of English. Milton treated his work as an art, not a chore. If you start treating your English practice as an art, you will find a joy you didn't know was possible. You will stop worrying about getting it right and start worrying about making it beautiful. Part 12. Learning from failure. Milton lived through a time of political failure. The side he supported lost. He was almost arrested. He lost his sight. His life was full of failures. But he didn't call them failures. He called them the challenges of his journey. He took those challenges and turned them into his greatest work. Your mistakes in English are not failures. They are the rough stones you must polish to make your language shine. Part 13. The Legacy of Dedication. John Milton dedicated his whole life to the idea that English could be as great as Latin or Greek. He proved it was true. You are part of that legacy. Every time you open an English book, you are continuing the work of thousands of writers like Milton who fought to make English the beautiful, flexible, and powerful language it is today. You are carrying the torch. Don't drop it. Part 14. You are the author of your future. John Milton didn't start Paradise Lost until he was old, blind, and struggling. It was never too late for him, and it is never too late for you. Whether you are young or old, whether you have been studying for years or just started today, you are the author of your English journey. You can dictate the direction of your progress. You can dictate the quality of your practice. You are the architect of your own fluency. Part 15. Your final mission. My lucky learners, thank you for walking through the dark, beautiful corridors of history with me today. You are doing something truly special. You are training your mind, you are opening your heart to a new culture, and you are building a bridge to the rest of the world. Keep practicing, keep improving, and keep being lucky. I will be right here, waiting to walk the next mile of the path with you. Bye for now. Before you go, I have one final mission for you. If you could write a short poem about one small, ordinary thing you saw today, like a cup of coffee, a tree, or a street lamp, how would you describe it? Try to use at least one beautiful or descriptive word.